Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons.
Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. I know that's not the voice you're used to hearing say that, but we had some technical problems this recording of this particular episode. The first half is absolutely unusable. The second half is here. You will still be able to listen to our selections. I am currently taking my punishment as being drawn and quartered, looking at some 4 horses at the moment, and I'm not thrilled with the result, but I will take my punishment, be stitched back together, and we will be fully running it up and running again for our next episode. Thank you for taking a moment, and if this is your first time listening to Strange Eons Radio, believe me, the opening segment is usually a lot more interesting. You'll hear Kelly talking about his apartment problems, me talking about some strange art house film that nobody else in the world is interested in, and Vanessa talking about her amazing abilities for editing. And it's really cool. So come back and try us again if this is your first time listener. If you're a regular listener, you know what's going on. And we'll see you all next week, and I hope you enjoy our selections for Eee Ess Pee.
The quest for Eee Ess Pee, extrasensory perception. Are you one of those special gifted people with Eee Ess Pee? Or is what happens to you just a coincidence? Now, find out for sure by calling this number and answering some simple questions with your touch-tone phone.
Then I'll tell you whether or not you possess Eee Ess Pee.
$1.95 per minute for entertainment only. Under 18 get permission.
Do you have Eee Ess Pee? Call now and I'll reveal the amazing answer.
Film that I chose, more recent one, 2017, Thelma.
Hi. Går det bedre?
Ja, det går mye bedre nå.
Det ser ut til å komme nye venner. Hva er det for noe?
Jeg vet ikke hva det er med meg, det bare...
Jeg skal hjelpe deg.
Herre, fjern dette fra meg. Frels meg fra disse tankene. Dette går ikke. Det her, det handler om noe som er mye større enn oss.
No relation to Louise.
Never heard of it.
You've never heard of it? Oh.
Well, how could you not have? It's a 1.5 million box office film.
It's a good movie. I think during the Raw time, I got a little excited and went Thelma-ing.
I can see that. Yeah. It's Hulu's. It's on Hulu, sorry. Hulu's rating. It's on Hulu's. The Rotten Tomatoes rating is critics at 93 and audience at 77, which which I think is pretty accurate.
Do you think that's the subtitle leap again?
Well, I think 77 is actually a pretty fair assessment because of, well, as I'll explain as I go on, there's some of the way the movie's told. I could see where somebody could go into this thinking it's going to be something very different than it is.
Sure.
So its budget was 47,500,000 krone. Or...
no, I don't even know what krone is.
It's Norwegian money.
So it's Norwegian money.
Or $5.2 million.
Okay, there we go. That
technically, it's right. 5.296 or $5,296,031.03. And 3 cents. That, had to have that to get that last something. I don't know. Anyway, so it's directed by, and I've done it to myself again. Like I said, this is a French film. Joachim Trier, I went German there.
Joachim
Trier, who directed Reprise, and not that one, not the breath one that I talked about a couple weeks ago, and another film called Louder Than Bombs.
I've heard of that.
I did some reading on the director, and it turns out this film was kind of a departure for him. His previous work was much more family dynamics, destruction of family, although that is present in this one. It was much more of a straight drama than this film is.
Oh, sure.
The writer, Eskil Vogt, why do we keep going German? Eskil Vogt? Screenplay, also by the director and Eskil. Those two guys have worked together a lot on most of the films they've done. They've written and directed together. Starring Ellie Harbaugh. In the Wave, and she's in The Wave and Kiss Me, You Fucking Moron.
The Wave is good. I have not seen the other one.
She's good. Very good actor. Really, really good performance in this. Kaya Wilkins is an Exit Plan, and Henrik Rolfalsen. The basic storyline is there's a girl who is raised fairly religious, and she's gone off to college, and while in college discovers she might be gay. She's not entirely certain. One of the early scenes, she walks in and she's in a library, which is a weird looking library, man. That's the way the books are. It's a whole bunch of tables connected together with little barrier things. But she goes, she's working on something, and another woman comes and sits next to her. And she starts to shake and react, and suddenly birds are flying into the windows of the library, and she goes into what looks like an epileptic seizure. As the movie goes on, you kind of learn what's going on and why that, you sort of learn what's going on and why that happened to her. The opening scene is one of those opening scenes, sort of like, I don't know, the Alec Baldwin scene in
Glengarry
Ross, where it's a short scene, and this is a very short scene, but it sets up the whole movie with an air of anything might happen. So if you're really keen on not spoiling this film, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the opening is. It's a daughter, and she's about 6, as you find out later. She's 6 years old at this time. And her dad, who is a different man than you meet later as her dad in the film, are out hunting, and he spots a deer, points the gun towards the deer, and tells the daughter, okay, watch over there. Just watch. And it cuts to a shot of her, and then as it pulls out, the gun has moved from the deer to the back of the kid's head and holds for a moment or two, but he doesn't shoot her. So I'm like, whoa. And it's so well shot, and it's so well laid out that it's just like, okay, I feel like you're watching that movie. It's like, okay, I feel like I'm in the hands of somebody who really knows what the fuck they're doing. So at that point I'm going, okay, yep, this is it. This is definitely the movie I'm talking about. I don't care what the rest of the movie is like, because I know it's going to be good, because that setup is too perfect. She's new to college now. She's older. It doesn't immediately tell you this is the same person either. Little girl's little, and then she's adult, and you're like, I think that's the same person, which is nice. It's a neat way to do it. But she's now at college and is away from her family. being the perfect religious person that they'd expect, where she goes to school, comes home, talks to mom, even though mom and dad are kind of dickish. But they're not mean. They're just sort of overbearing. But you quickly realize she's pretty lonely. And when she meets, what's her name? Anya. It doesn't immediately hit her that, I'm attracted to this woman. She has no idea necessarily what's going on. She's okay, this person's really neat. I want to hang out with them. I want to see what their world is like. So they go out dancing and drinking. And she doesn't drink at this point. It's like, no, I'm Christian. And it's a neat little scene where her friends, Anya's friends, harass her a little bit about that, but not in a mean way. So she feels comfortable, and it's like, okay, going out and meeting other people is actually kind of cool. This is not something I need to be scared of. But her dad calls for like the third or fourth time in the middle of that, and she goes out to talk to him, destroying the evening, which leads to another incredibly well-constructed, very short scene where she goes back and is laying in bed, and the camera kind of moves over, and what looks like right next to her is Anya. But as it pulls back, you realize Anya's in her own bed. Thelma's in her own bed, but she's thinking about her. And she thinks about her so strongly that I forgot what led to her. She goes outside, and Anya's standing outside her apartment building. Yeah, I think so. How did you get here? You've never been to my building before. How did you know I was here? It's like, I don't know why I'm here. And it's like that shot though in the bed and the way it's constructed, the way it moves, it's like, okay, fuck, this is really cool too. And it's just really short, amazing little segments like that. But then leads her to have another epileptic seizure when she finds her out in front of the building. It's obvious that they're a little bit more than friends now. They're both kind of realizing that. Thelma starts drinking wine and smoking, and shares a story of one thing her dad did to her one time, which she shares as isn't this a really weird, quirky thing my dad did? And as she tells you, that's horribly abusive. And Anya immediately sees that and tells her, like, what? No, it's fine. I don't know. And she doesn't see it, which is great. Because there's nothing more annoying in films when somebody says something that's deeply seated in their past. Somebody next to them goes, you know what that is? That's this. And they immediately go, oh my God, you're right. It's like, that ain't how your brain works. So they go together to see a ballet in what I guess is one of Norway's most famous concert halls. Sort of like the one you see down in Australia all the time or something. This is Norway's version of that. And it's beautiful inside. And Anya kind of moves her hand over on her, and we get another attack. And it's like, and one thing this movie does very interestingly is it pushes boundaries, but never jumps over that cliff. There's a giant sound absorbing thing above the seats, and it starts to move and stuff, but it never falls. They do a lot of that really well. And this leads to her pulling back. Thelma is not ready for what's going on with her and Anya. And, of course, then she goes and asks a boy out. Hangs out with a guy at a party. And they trick her into, well, not trick her, but they get her to smoke some marijuana, which leads to a very strange dream sequence, which is really cool. Her hallucination includes Anya. And so it becomes a little more apparent to her, okay, maybe I'm denying something here. She goes in to get medically tested because she keeps having seizures and finds out that unbeknownst to her, she had a seizure when she was 6. And said, well, my dad's a doctor. Why didn't he explain to me about this? And he's like, oh, well, you should ask your dad. I'm sure he can explain it very well. The tests continue and basically amount to, well, we don't know what's going on. The dynamics between her and her parents are interestingly well played out when you start to realize they are there as a protection almost. It's hard to describe what her powers are because they're so subtly portrayed. What she did at 6 and you're not entirely certain if she did it or if her mother did it, she got a baby boy or a baby brother, and he was crying and yelling, and Thelma got upset about that, and suddenly the baby was gone. Just disappeared. And the mom's like, freaks out, and she thinks that you could see her think again, and the baby comes back. But underneath the couch that it takes the parents lifting to pull the baby out of, so, there's no way that she grabbed the baby and put her under the couch. So it's, the movie's really smart in that way, in that and this is where I think that 77 comes in. This is not a paint by numbers. Here's what's happening. Can you believe this? Wow, this is amazing. This is a strange reference, but it works, I think. Like in the movie 12 Monkeys. If you follow Bruce Willis's path through 12 Monkeys, there are times you feel like you fully know what's going on, and there's times that you realize, no, I really have no idea what is going on. This film is that way with Thelma, where you're following her story, and at times you're going, oh, I think she's getting somewhere. Oh, well, no. Nope. She is not on the right path. There's another great moment where she realizes she did that to Anya, where she made Anya disappear somehow. Because she goes looking for her, and there's a strand of her hair stuck in the outer glass of Anya's apartment. Like the glass was built around the hair. It's like, oh, that's so cool. Oh my God. I wrote right down here, what the hell is going on in this movie? And not in a frustrated way where I'm going, this is just dumb and confusing. I don't get it. It's like, this is fascinating and interesting. Where is it going? At some point, and I don't know if I ever got an explanation for this, maybe you noticed this, but the bird stuff. Like there's the bird and the poster, her face is covered by a bird.
Right.
Birds run into windows. At one point, she throws up a bird.
I didn't get it. I didn't really know what that was, no.
I wonder if maybe there's some...
There must be like some fairy tale or some kind of, something.
Yeah, because the interviews and stuff I read about that, they never really referenced or explained what the bird was for. And as the movie goes on, you kind of see she can do a whole lot of weird shit. In many ways, I think what the movie really is like is sort of like, Untraceable's pretty good. Not Untraceable, the M. Night Shyamalan, Unbreakable. Mm-hmm. Where you slowly realize this is like an origin story of a superhero. And by the end of the movie, she's realized what she's about. And then the movie ends. You're like, damn it. Do a sequel, please. I want to see where this goes. So it is a kind of a coming of age story. It's kind of the thing. I think, again, the 77 probably is because for some reason, it's advertised largely as a horror film.
That's true. I do remember it being advertised as a horror movie.
Not.
And it's much more, it's much more kind of a fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of a superpower fantasy fairy tale story with thriller elements.
Yeah.
And some dark shit, but it's not a horror film. And it was well enough received that this was Norway's submission for the Academy Awards for foreign film category. It didn't get accepted, but that was their thought of their best film of the year in Norway. I was a little surprised in reading about it that there are more than 200 CGI shots in this film.
Oh my God.
That was my thought. I mean, there's the obvious ones like the birds and when she's in the pool.
Right.
Which is a gorgeous shot and really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. What happens during the pool is like, oh. But they could not afford the effects because $5 million's not a lot to make a movie, because it's a big movie. It's not it's got big sets.
It's got like an opera house.
Yeah.
It's got
well acted, incredibly well shot. And what they did is the directors cachet or whatever was good enough that he went around to the biggest effects house in Norway and said, let's kind of do what they did for New Zealand with The Hobbit, where we won't be able to pay your full scale, but we'll bring all of the best effects companies in Norway together to work on this one film, and we'll make it look fantastic, and we'll get people to come to Norway for effects, because who the hell goes to Norway to get their CGI effects done?
That's so clever.
And it sounds like it's worked.
Yeah.
It sounds like it worked a little bit. I mean, it's not like What a Workshop, of course, but then again, they didn't work on one of the largest trilogies ever made. So
I mean, they obviously did a great job because we're both surprised there was that much CGI in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think of half a dozen or a dozen CGI shots, but 200? Like, damn. The film does not give simple answers really to anything. A large portion of what works in this film and why it's so good is there's the clever shots I pointed out, but there's also more clever work. There's a lot of good scene structure. There's a lot of really solid acting. Everybody in it is very good. It's got a wonderful series. Instead of where a film you don't necessarily know what's going on, where you kind of feel like, just tell me what's going on. I really don't care. This is more like, feed it to me. I'm here. Keep going. However you want to bring this story to me, I am open to it. Bring that. And I really like this one. This was one I've liked more than for a little while of the picks we've been doing that weren't like Streets of Fire or something, which I've loved for decades. But the new ones are going, well, it's good. It's all right. This one's really fucking good.
The thing that struck me about this film was it is such a good coming of age story, which is obviously what you mentioned, but just there's this moment, and I know you kind of touched on it in the opera house, where she's coming to terms with her feelings and she's trying to make this decision as to whether or not she likes this other girl, and their hands are getting like closer and closer as if to like hold hands in the darkness during this amazing like song that's coming out, and you can feel her being overwhelmed. They don't say any of this. No. It's all visual.
And the ballet on stage is fairly kind of homoerotic and very not overtly sexualized, but very sexual at the same time.
Yeah.
And so
and all that stuff. I felt like it was so good at tapping into emotional states and those early confusing moments that we all have when we're trying to figure out who we are and what we want, and oh my God, sex exists. Like what is that about? I definitely thought this one was incredible, but it's funny. I've only seen it once. It's been a little while. I totally forgotten about half the stuff you talked about, and it just makes me excited all over again.
Very cool.
You're going to end up hating it, and then you're going to come in, and you're going to be like, well, this scene didn't even exist, Vanessa.
What the hell's wrong with you, boy?
That's true. I'm just very defensive.
What did you bring to the table?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I brought a film that I actually have seen several times and I really love, and I think it's definitely a hidden gem. The movie Eyes of Laura Mars.
In a world of breathtaking models and the beautiful people, Academy Award winner Faye Dunaway is photographer Laura Mars. Her work, the subject of controversy. Tommy Lee Jones is Detective John Neville, intrigued by her photographs for his own reasons.
These are police photographs. They are strictly our own material. They were never published anywhere at all. So my question is very simple.
Why are my photographs so much like yours?
That's right.
Somewhere between the sensations of high fashion and the precise form of her art lies another dimension, unexplored, unexpected. Unwillingly, Laura Mars becomes a witness to a series of murders, watching through the eyes of a killer.
happens, I can't see what's in front of me. What I see is that. Think of that camera as the eyes of the killer.
Drawn by a mystery,
Do you understand?
their lives converge. Her world, sensual, dazzling, provocative. His world, demanding, dangerous, violent.
This is incredible. In the midst of all of this, I can't stop thinking of you.
I know.
What is going on?
I don't know. I mean, it's completely unprofessional of me to be walking with you in the woods, I'll tell you that.
I don't have time for this.
I'm supposed to be catching a killer.
I'm completely out of control. I can't stand it. I saw him in the elevator, so I'm killed. Get out of here. In the elevator.
Pursued by visions. She is linked to a killer. At any place, at any time, a witness. At any moment, a victim of her own eyes. Eyes of Laura Mars.
Oh, yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I have seen that one.
Absolutely. Have you seen this, Kelly?
She was 1978-ish. I think I might have seen it. Too young to really.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason why I came across it is because I'm trying to be a completionist with John Carpenter's works, and his name is on the writing credits. So I got very excited and went and sought it out. And it is something else for sure. It has such a good 1978 artiste flavor to it. It is. You got it on the money. It has a pretty decent budget. It was $7 million, box office brought in 20. So did okay. Rotten Tomatoes 50% critics, 43% audience. So, and I know exactly why.
Okay.
There is a very clear reason for that. However, just gotta say the people involved in this are no joke. You've got director Irvin Kershner. Yeah. You guys might remember him from a little film called Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah. Two writers on this, which is John Carpenter and David Zelag Goodman, who did Straw Dogs and Logan's Run. Jesus. The cinematographer, Victor J. Kemper, did Dog Day Afternoon, Clue, Xanadu. Then he took a sharp turn and did National Lampoon's Vacation, The Jerk, Bring It On, All or Nothing, American Pie Presents Band Camp. I don't know what happened to this guy, but
yeah,
he's done a lot. He's done a lot of stuff. He also did Jingle All the Way, which is unfortunate. But anyway, starring a couple of names that the people that really, oh my God, the acting is so good. So the lead, Laura Mars, is played by Faye Dunaway. You've got Tommy Lee Jones as sort of the heroic male figure, Lieutenant John Neville. Brad Dourif, not as a throwaway character, but it almost feels like it's a weird thing. He's part of her entourage. So there's a whole group of people who follow Laura Mars around, and she's a big time celebrity photographer. And he's sort of like this smaller character in that, but because Brad Dourif is such an incredible actor, he just takes over that role. And what could have been just nothing, like a nothing stupid part, is just unbearably good and bad and hard. And I loved what he did with it. And then a surprise with Renee Auberjonois. I'm really bad at knowing how to say this guy's name. Odo. Auberjonois, from Odo from Deep Space Nine, who this is by far the best acting I've ever seen from him. And I've seen him show up in a couple of different things, but he destroys this role.
Is that the guy from Benson? Okay.
He's got like a interesting feature face. He's very much character looking. The basic plot is we've got Laura Mars is a famous photographer. She does these really highly stylized fashion shoots that are set in crime scenes. And this has caused her work to be incredibly controversial. People are arguing that her photographs are glorifying violence and demeaning women. There's definitely a lot of women in like low cut, sleek black dresses laying over the hood of cars and people like with knives standing over them, all that kind of stuff. However, a copycat has started taking her photographs and doing real life crimes to match. Yeah. So we start off kind of at a big show of hers and people are, you know, questioning her work. And actually Tommy Lee shows up very early on and you're like, man, this cop makes a very early introduction to himself. And he really he's like, man, who's the photographer? And she's like, oh, I don't know why. And he's like, some pretty bad stuff. And she's like, well, it's me. He's like, oh dear, excuse me, I'm going to leave. I'm Tommy Lee Jones.
Looking for a fugitive. Get out of the way.
Just going to head on over here. And amazingly, of course, as these copycat murders start to take place, he gets pulled in as the lead kind of detective to try and solve this. And the murders begin to not just be randomized, but become part of her entourage. So more people that are closer and closer to her are dying as part of these scenes to make up her photographs. And so Tommy Lee is trying to help her out and like keep her safe throughout this journey, I guess. Initially they really clash, but then of course a spark emerges and there's a little bit of something underneath it. Yep.
The age discrepancy there.
He looks really good. He looks younger. He does not look like older Tommy Lee Jones. He looks like younger Tommy Lee Jones. So even if there is a bit of an age discrepancy, I don't know. It feels right. It feels matched in the film. As people are being picked off, the obvious person to pin this all on is Brad Dourif. He's like a little sketchy. He's obsessed with one of the models. He's always like a little weird and he's gotten into like gambling trouble. So, of course, they chase after him because there's something that's pinning him to a murder. I believe he leaves something or one of his items is found at a crime scene. So there's a big chase scene and it ends with him actually getting killed. Really good stuff. Really, really, really good acting. I know that sounds like such a cliche, stupid thing, but he destroys it. It's so good. It's so heartbreaking. However, despite him being out of the picture, the murders continue. And to complicate things, Laura Mars has this interesting connection. Not only are her photographs being used to replicate these scenes, when the murderer is killing people to craft them, her eyes change to see their point of view. In fact, she kind of goes blind and all she can see is this person murdering people, and whether that's her friends, whether that's following her into an elevator and she's like, oh my God, I can't see anything, and pressing the buttons. She can only see herself through this reflected image of this killer, which is really cool. So as the killer gets closer and closer to her, you just have this double difficulty of her being horrified and terrified of what this person is doing and how her work is being just twisted, but also making for some really good chase scenes, frankly, like really excellent chase scenes. The climax of the film, Laura is, of course, it's a big chase scene. The killer's finally going to get to her. And we have a revealing at the very, very end of who the killer is. Mm. This is when it sucks.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I almost don't even want to tell you guys. It's such a good film up until that moment. But the reveal of who the killer is just stupid. Mm. It's frustrating. It's throwaway. It feels cheap. It feels lame. So just bear that in mind, that the rest of the film, it's gorgeous to look at. The characters are amazing. Renee Auberjois? Renee. Let's just say Renee. Like the characters are so dynamic and just bold. You've got, in part of her entourage for a while, you have trying to think of the dwarf who's there, and no one says anything about it. They're just like, oh, this is just a dwarf hanging out and having conversations with people at a party. No one cares. Yeah. Renee has a birthday party and at one point is dressing in drag. No one says anything. No one cares. It's just everyone is themselves and these eccentric New York personalities from the 70s in the art scene. And it feels super authentic and super fascinating just to watch and be a part of that world. So I love it.
Did Andy Warhol make an appearance?
No.
Oh, amazing.
No, I know. Well, not that I know of in saying that. However, I will say that there's some really interesting things kind of happening as far as the style in here. So a little let me go through the likes and dislikes first, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the interesting behind the scenes know-hows. First of all, the things I love about it, I've said it, but the fashion is incredible. The sets are incredible. The locations are incredible. I think it's Columbus Circle that they have a photo shoot and they actually take it over in New York and they put like flaming cars in there and do the whole thing. It's really cool. The use of mirrors is great. Just locations are amazing. The acting is amazing. Everybody kills it. Absolutely everybody kills it. And there's just a consistent, beautiful, artistic, dreamlike cinematography going on. Like I said, the dislike is the really stupid ending.
That's too bad.
It's fine. But Tommy Lee Jones alone is just really worth watching in this because it's such it's a role for him that you've seen before. He's a cop, he's straight-laced, et cetera, et cetera. Sure. But at the same time, it's just such a different setting that, I don't know, you get to see some interesting bouncing between him and Faye Dunaway. There's some really cool sort of tension happening between the two. So, trivia. This film is said to be an American example of Italian giallo genre. It's shot entirely in New York City and New Jersey. The original title was Eyes. When I say John Carpenter was one of the writers, I mean he wrote 11 pages.
Oh. Hope it
of
wasn't
a treatment. No, it was not. Producer Jack Harris had worked with Carpenter on Dark Star, and he optioned the treatment from him. The intention was definitely to have Carpenter write it, but the studio actually insisted on a rewrite, and that's how David Zelag Goodman got brought on. Carpenter says it wasn't a pleasant experience. The original script was very good, I thought, but it got shat upon. Carpenter hates this film. Changes included the ending, the killer's identity, and ultimately, he had pretty much nothing to do with the final product. And this film came out a few months before the release of Halloween.
Right.
So,
oh my.
Yeah. So it was definitely, it's a sore spot for him for sure. I still feel like despite that, you can feel some Carpenter elements in there. I don't think that I think while the dialogue might be different and the some of the choices along the way might be different, the core and the soul of it still does feel very Carpenter. Yeah. So although it's different, I don't know. I really dig this film.
Well, Carpenter's nothing if not a guy that can hold a grudge.
This is true. This is true.
And he loves Sonic the Hedgehog. Other fun facts.
Just a happy-go-lucky guy in general.
So many fun things to talk about. So Harris actually wanted to make the film independently and have Roberta Collins in the lead. His friend John Petzer read it and became enthusiastic that it could be a vehicle for his then girlfriend Barbra Streisand. Barbra Streisand, who's originally attached, ended up singing the song "Prisoner," which is the theme of the movie. She then declined the role. Catherine Deneuve, Jane Fonda, Goldie Hawn.
Catherine Deneuve?
Are you going to correct somebody on their pronunciation?
If I actually know it, yeah.
It might be Deneuve. I might have just written it down wrong. And Goldie Hawn and Diane Keaton were all considered for Laura Mars. Peter, who's the producer on it, had a terse relationship with Faye Dunaway on set. It was apparently very uncomfortable. The style of all the cinematography, and my brother's a photographer and he dragged me through a lot of galleries and said a lot of stuff I didn't understand. And so when I was watching this film, I was like, I know there's an artist who this is literally what they do. They do crime scene fashion shots. Sure. And that's true. It's based on the work of Helmut Newton, who provided some of the photos that were used for the film, along with Rebecca Blake. IMDb said that it's based on the 70s disco era fashion photographer Chris von Wangheim, but I don't think that's the case, especially since they used actual photos from Helmut.
Used some photos of the person. That's probably the influence.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, IMDb. You take that back.
IMDb never gets anything wrong. Are you kidding me?
Right. The film mostly received positive reviews. New York Times' Janet Maslin called the ending of the film dumb, but otherwise liked it. She wrote, it's the cleverness of Eyes of Laura Mars that counts. Cleverness that manifests itself in superlative casting, dryly controlled direction from Irvin Kershner, and spectacular settings that turn New York into a kind of eerie, lavish dreamland that could exist only in the idle noodlings of the very, very hip. Just a mouthful, but I feel like describes it very well. On the other hand,
70s reviewers and their
so different. Such a different, taking it really artistic way.
How would she have tweeted that?
Hashtag cool. Roger Ebert, on the other hand, gave it 1.5 stars, saying it was cliched and a woman in trouble plot. I think he's full of crap. I think that it's a very cool female-led film, and he can suck it from the grave. George Lucas actually hired Kershner to direct Empire based off of seeing the early rough cut of this film. Oh, wow. Tommy Lee Jones actually wrote his own monologue in this movie. He's got some really good different little scenes throughout, but he didn't want to get in trouble with the Writers Guild, so he attributed it to the director. Faye Dunaway followed around a bunch of photographers to try and figure out how this works. And as the photographer in this movie, she uses a Nikon FM Fit with an MD-11 motor drive for those who care, which is probably not very many of you. And Laura Mars's character is mentioned in pop culture through things like Tori Amos's song Gold Dust, and Mad Magazine did a spin-off of the film called Eyes of Lurid Mess. So, it's funny because the first time I saw this, I almost felt like it had a little bit of a made-for-TV quality to it, and I think it was just its otherness and its real, stuck in its own time. But having seen it over and over again, it's just magical. I don't know. I love this movie. I think it's totally a hidden gem, much like Mouth of Madness was. When I saw it, I felt like I discovered some kind of little gold piece. So,
wow, I am going to look this up. It's streaming on Crackle right now. So
thank you for letting me know. I did not know. Crackle. I have a copy of it from Shout Factory, Scream Factory.
Oh well, there you go.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I guess it's my turn.
Yes.
I chose a movie that I was not sure about and then just fucking loved from 2009 called Push.
There are some people in this world with extraordinary gifts. We don't ask to be special. We're just born that way. Some of us can move objects with our minds.
You're a second-generation mover.
Is that what the kids are calling it these days? Others can make their thoughts your own. Get the hell out of my head! Some can see the future. You're a watcher.
Right now, our future isn't that great.
But there's a secret organization within our government called Division, trained to track us down and turn us into weapons.
There's only one person who's ever escaped from Division. We have to find her. She's the key to bringing them down.
With her, we're going to create an army the world's never seen before.
I haven't even gotten to the bad part yet. We die.
Great. Division's looking for you.
We're here to help you.
You said the future's always changing, right?
What are you gonna go do?
Gonna try and make a better one.
Sounds like a plan, but what about the part where we die?
Not part of the plan.
They're here.
We want Division out of Hong Kong just as much as you do.
Damn.
You need to accept this reality. You all die. You know who doesn't? Me.
Gonna try and get inside my head? Go ahead. See if you can push me before I pull the trigger.
Your move.
Wait. No, go.
I don't see why you keep at it. You already know the ending to this story.
We're going to change it.
You guys
never heard of
familiar with this one?
I don't think.
Familiar with it, but I don't think I've seen it.
It had a budget of $38 million and a worldwide box office of $48 million. So that sounds like it did okay, but as we all know, they probably dropped $15 or $16 million into advertising.
Yeah.
Right.
So this was not a hit, and the reviews probably didn't help. The Rotten Tomatoes critics is 23%.
Oh,
the audience only has it at 42%.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure why, because I had such a good time with this movie that I just loved it. And I was like, well, why did this never make it? It was directed by Paul McGuinan, who did Lucky Number 11.
Oh, yeah.
And he's directed episodes of Sherlock, and he directed the first episode of the Dracula BBC miniseries,
cool.
The Good Episode.
The best episode, yeah.
Written by David Borea, who has done a number of 90s TV movies and really nothing else. And of those, I looked at them and I thought, I've never heard of one of these.
Oh, wow.
So it stars Chris Evans,
Whoa.
who plays Johnny Storm in 2 Fantastic Four movies.
So good. Round of applause.
It stars Dakota Fanning, who was the little girl in Man on Fire and War of the Worlds, and is currently in the show The Alienist.
Oh, yeah.
And Camilla Bell, who was in 10,000 BC, and she was one of the little girls in Practical Magic. I'm not super familiar with her, and she's a very sporadic actor. Evans plays Nick, who is a man with a talent of telekinesis. Years ago, he saw his father, who was also a telekinetic, killed by a group of special agents from something called the Division. Part of the reason I love this thing is that it felt like, if you're familiar with Stephen King's stories in the early 80s, a lot of his stuff had this shadowy government agency called The Shop. And they were just responsible for a lot of the bullshit that was going on in Firestarter, and then they would show up in other things. They were kind of a catch-all agency that subjected people to tests and trials that they didn't realize were going on and stuff like that. And this feels very much like The Shop to me. Mm-hmm. They are full of people who have these strange abilities, and to what end do they work? We'll never know, and it's best that we don't. Anyway, Nick's been on the run from the Division ever since his father was killed. Dakota plays Cassie, who is what is called a watcher. She can see things in the future. She's what they call them precogs, and she has this interesting talent that she can kind of see the future every once in a while, and then she draws on a sketch pad what she saw. And half the time she has no idea what it means. So she'll just draw something, and then she shows it to somebody like, does anybody know what this is? So she's a precog, and she can see the future, and she's broken away from the Division because she's seen in one of her visions a young woman who will be instrumental in saving her mother, who has been kidnapped. And so she's on the hunt for this girl, and she enlists Chris Evans' character, Nick, to help her. Camilla Bell plays Kira, who is the young woman that they are all searching for. she has this really cool ability where she can kind of plant a thought in your head, kind of like Charlie McGee's dad in Firestarter. And she can say something like, I feel really bad about your brother to an agent. And at one point she does do this. And the guy's like, I don't have a brother. And she goes, yeah, you did. He died very young and you've been searching for his killer. And his eyes kind of start glazing off. And then she plants the idea that his partner is the guy who killed his brother.
Oh my God.
That he's been searching for all this time.
Whoa.
I heard a rumor.
Right. That's clearly taken from I guess it would have been Travis McGee in Firestarter, because he could do that same kind of thing. He could plant an idea in your head and you would just follow it through. So this all turns into this crazy story of Nick and Cassie trying to catch up to Kira, who, when they do, we find out, wait a second, this is Nick's ex-lover that he's been looking for and he thought was killed. So she is angry at him because she had been captured by the division and he didn't, come and save her. And he was like, I thought you were dead this whole time. And all of this stuff. She has a suitcase that is full of this special, some kind of drug that when used by, the theory is when used by people who have these kind of talents, it will boost their talent immensely. Unfortunately, she is the only person this drug has worked on so far. Everybody else dies. And it becomes clear that she is not doing very well. This thing is starting to act on her too. And she's trying to get away from the division, who wants this suitcase. The people who have Cassie's mom want that suitcase in return for her. And Nick is just trying to save these two people that he, has grown fond of. So it's got some amazing, cool scenes of telekinetic powers and stuff like that. But the really cool part is that this is all shot in and around Hong Kong.
Oh.
And they are being chased through Hong Kong also by this, I guess it would be kind of an underworld element, Yakuza almost, although that would be Japanese, so whatever the Hong Kong equivalent of that is. But they all have powers too. And some of the powers they have are crazy. There's a family, the godfather of this, and then his two sons. They all have the same ability to scream really loud and break shit. So like,
oh
like
my gosh,
yeah.
That's so cool.
And it's great because they'll just come running after someone and then they stop, plant themselves, and just go, ah! And you see shit just explode all around. So there's that, and then they also have as a sister another precog, and you can tell that she's stronger than Cassie. And she does the same thing, although she's a really good artist. So she sees something and she draws this beautiful thing that you can absolutely tell what she's seeing. And Cassie's whole thing is she's got a sketchbook full of sketches that are so-so. So it's kind of cute and clever that she even knows, she'll draw something and then she hands it to Nick and he'll be like, what's with the bean? She goes, that's not a bean. That's this. Well, it looks like a bean. So, between that and then they go and talk to other people who have powers. It turns out that there's just this incredible network of people who have powers that none of us realize is going on, and they're shaping world events and doing all of this stuff. It's really, really cool. One of the guys is a matter converter, and he plays the dad in the first season of Fear the Walking Dead. And I've seen him before in other things. I just really like him as an actor. And his whole thing is they come upon him in a really swanky bar, and he's tipping very well. The girls there just love him. But you see that he basically pulls a piece of paper out that says 50 on it, that he's written 50 on, and as he gives it to her, it turns into a $50 bill, and they're all very happy and stuff like that. But he lets you know, or he lets us, the audience, know that spend that quick because it's not going to last for long. So there's stuff like that going on. It's a really, really cool movie. Effects are awesome. The scenery is really cool because it's all Hong Kong at night. It's all neon and rain. It looks
Blade Runner-esque.
It looks like Blade Runner. Yeah. The movie falls apart under its own weight at the end. It's got a climax that a big fight that I was like, I don't know why this isn't working. Well, in one part, it just gets stupid, and that's why it isn't working. But I don't know what else they could have done. Part of it might have been that the entire thing is they're trying to save Cassie's mom, and that is not accomplished. In fact, it's not even really brought up. Where the movie ends, the next step is them going now to save her mom. It's set up for a sequel that never happens. So that could have felt very unsatisfying to people, I think, and that might be why it got such a low rating. But it's packed with amazing acting. Dakota Fanning, she's like 14 in this, and she's just holding her own against everybody else in this movie. She's fantastic. A couple of things that I thought were really, really interesting about this. So, shot on location in Hong Kong, guerrilla style, because they wanted to catch the hustle and bustle of downtown Hong Kong. So they hid all the cameras, and the crew was never visible. This led to a very interesting scene when Camilla is kidnapped in public at gunpoint.
Oh no!
On the streets of Hong Kong.
Oh no!
And nobody reacted. No cameras there and no crew visible. All the passerbys just pretended they did not see whatever happened.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
That's exactly what it probably would be like in London too.
Yeah,
just
crazy,
like,
right?
You know what? That's
I
somebody
don't want to
else's
be
problem.
involved in this.
Yep.
How do you legally show all those people then?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I think public spaces, like there are certain, it's fine in a lot of public
Not
spaces.
usually, no.
Well, I mean, you see a
Depends
lot of
where
those
you're- what
movies in the
country.
70s that are shot on location in New York, and you get a street scene. You realize there's, because sometimes people will,
basket
make
case.
eye contact
Looking
with
at
the
the
camera.
Yeah.
So, and I know they didn't get thousands of release.
Right. I wonder if they're doing like what we did for the Star Wars documentary. Just
post
some shit around the block, and if you don't see it, you don't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's posted.
It could be just and totally different rule set also in Hong Kong, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild.
I gotta, man, this movie is highly recommended by me. I don't understand the 23% Rotten Tomatoes. That's just shocking to me because I don't know what you're looking for in a film like this. There's a ton of action. The effects are great. The acting is really strong. It's full of movie stars.
Did Harvey Weinstein work on it?
I didn't bother to look at who. Boy, I want to say
At that point,
this was
probably would have
Focus
made it
Films,
better.
maybe. So
Okay.
probably not. In 2009, so it was just before everything broke. Iron Man was 2010, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
sure.
this was. I don't know. It's a cool superhero movie that is hidden inside of a kind of a neo-noirish underworld crime story.
It sounds awesome. I've never heard anything about this movie.
It's very cool.
And I love like sci-fi and neon and people.
Please watch this and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
It's only available as a rental unless you own it. And I don't know. I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And Chris Evans clearly is a guy who is a fan of the genre. So, so prior to this, he had played Johnny Storm in a couple of Fantastic Four movies. Then, of course, he gets the Captain America role. So, and that takes, the next 10 years of his life. While he's doing that, he's done Snowpiercer.
I forgot he was in Snowpiercer.
He was one of the evil exes in Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
So he's a genre lover. He's got to be.
Yeah.
Or his agent is smart enough to realize this is the way the wind is blowing, and if you want to become a movie star, you got to be a movie star.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy to be one of 1,000 handsome, blonde, blue-eyed gentlemen waiting in line outside of audition rooms. But if you're that guy waiting outside of a Scott Pilgrim movie, it might be a little different.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, once you nail that part down, you can take your little Knives Out role, and people will start going,
Love it.
This guy can actually act.
Yeah.
So let's give him, other roles.
Everyone is surprised. Wait a minute. You can do something other than Cap? Whoa. I know I was.
Yeah.
America's butt.
He's just such a
Damn
likable
right.
guy. I hope he's a really nice guy because he's such a likable person on film.
He seems to have a little bit of The Rock kind of thing where it's like, if you found out The Rock was a bad guy, that would be really surprising.
Yeah.
He's got that same kind of energy about him that's like, we're really surprised if. So like right now with Ellen DeGeneres being destroyed, kind of like, I can see that.
I think we all saw this one coming, right? Yeah, and you always see him, as one of the guys who shows up in costume for the kids who have cancer and stuff like that. I'm like, God, you got to be a certain kind of person to give of yourself that kind of time and then be around, that kind of sadness and say, this means something to me. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say he's a nice guy.
I don't think that's a very strong limb you are sitting on.
All right. Well, that means then I think Vanessa, it's your turn.
Yeah. So I've had this idea bumping around for a little while now, so I'm ready to pounce it on y'all. So I would like to do Ghost in the Machine. And by ghost, I mean any entity or change that a machine, whether it becomes evil or self-aware or demonized or haunted, anything along those lines, so long as it stops being a machine and becomes something else.
Eric, did you watch Short Circuit just recently?
Well, yes, I did.
I wonder what I mean, by all means, I'm not going to stop you from doing Short Circuit. Could be good.
We already talked about it on the podcast.
That's true. We have covered it.
I love this idea, and I can't wait to see what everybody comes up with.
Cool.
Very cool.
So thanks to you two for coming all the way out here. Thanks to everybody listening. Love you guys so much. Really, really, from the bottom of my heart. All the, I don't know if you guys caught the story that Ron Forbick wrote that features Strange Eons Radio in it.
Yes, that was so cool. And Suncoast and
there were seagulls and pizza.
It wrapped up a lot of elements. It was pretty exciting.
So I thought that was really nice.
Yeah. We did have, real sorry, I didn't write down your name, but we had another 5-star review, but they didn't leave a movie.
Oh.
So feel free to go, which, hey, bonus cool, but feel free to go back. And if you want to put a movie to watch inside that 5-star review, feel free. Well, check it out and talk about it.
That's really nice. I love it when people leave any kind of review or interact in any kind of way, but it's really nice because you know what? It's a lot to ask someone, hey, take a couple of minutes and sign in to your account and write something about us. That's
especially if you've never done a review, you got to figure out how to do it, where you go to find it, and all. It maybe seems simple, and maybe it is, but at the same time, if you've never done it before, it feels weird. It's like, okay, what do I do now?
It took me a while to figure out all the 1-star reviews I left for us. that was more difficult than I thought it did.
You actually had to use some effort. Yeah, I feel like whenever I get to read the reviews that people leave for us, it's almost like going through a high school yearbook and seeing like these nice little notes people leave. It feels so good and it means so much, and definitely like cherish and hold on to those. Those boost us all day long. So thank you to everyone who has taken the time to do that.
I agree. Okay, enough of that bullshit. I will see you guys 1 week from now. We will be talking Ghost in the Machine.
See ya.
Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Margaret. Our theme music is Strange Eons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Eons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts are found.